Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Because Football podcast. This is your host, Andrew. And today, please welcome to the pod, Hanna Howard, CEO of Rematch, French-founded sports tech platform revolutionizing the way players and coaches can share sports highlights. We're going to talk specifically about soccer and that connection and how they are part of the soccer community here in the U.S. But first, Hanna, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Andrew. I'm thrilled to be here, excited to navigate this conversation with you and talk soccer and definitely, of course, share where we think Rematch has an impactful space in the, wildly evolving soccer ecosystem that we see here in the U.S.
Yes, wildly evolving, exciting time. It definitely is, World Cup, even World Cup aside, honestly, there's a lot going on. And that's just going to kind of be like, I've heard it described as the rocket fuel to push a lot of things. And we're hoping for that. But first, let's get to know you a little bit. And the way we like to do that is going into your initial soccer background. What's your earliest memory of the game?
All right. Well, let me say, I was a kid who played all the sports. I had parents who valued sports. And so it was a very prominent part of my youth. But I'll tell you, my first memory, and I hope that maybe I can share this podcast with my uncle and it'll make him proud. My first soccer memory is credit to my uncle. He gave me, I'm going to say maybe for a fifth or sixth birthday, a box that a refrigerator came in. And granted, this was like back in the 80s. Okay. So it was a giant box. And inside that box was full of every single sports ball you could think of, from soccer, basketball, tennis, volleyball, whatever it was, football. Like the entire box was full of sports balls. And that soccer memory is I took that giant refrigerator box, cut out a window, turned it over on its side, and it became my soccer goal and playing soccer out in the front yard into that box. That when you sent that message, I instantly had that moment like,
that's awesome.
Seriously.
That's an epic uncle move. I'm thinking, I was like, wow, I got to do that for my niece, although jealously, selfishly, I would just have it full of soccer balls, probably, to be fair. But love that idea.
Ball, right?
Exactly. She'll be set.
Yeah.
She'll be set. Yeah. Very cool. And so then when you're involved in different sports, what did kind of your connection to soccer look like?
So played all the sports, but I would say, the two sports in my youth that really kind of prevailed at the front end of, where my focus and, maybe skill set was in soccer and basketball. Loved both sports. I think probably had an opportunity, perhaps to have pursued, a more, a bigger career or experience in soccer, but basketball became my sport. And so, played soccer all the way through high school, but really as I got into the latter part of high school in Oregon, soccer, is a fall sport. And so it was what kept me in shape or got me in better shape than, the going into the basketball season. So, but soccer has always been a big part of my just sports passion. I went to the University of Portland on a basketball scholarship. While I was at University of Portland, University of Portland's women's soccer team was a national powerhouse, including winning the national championship while I was there. Rapinoe was there, Christine Sinclair was there. So, I got to see, high level soccer through my college athletic career as a basketball player. And then, as I've transitioned to being a mom, both my kids, play soccer, love soccer. My son's kind of taken that next step and is playing for FC Dallas Academy. So we're in it. We're all in on the soccer world. I claim that soccer mom title with pride.
Yeah. That's very cool that you were at University of Portland. I was just somewhat recently talking with someone and I've heard both for the men's and the women's, the student support, the atmosphere there is just huge, and they really kind of champion soccer, which you don't always find. It's most schools are a basketball or a football school or something like that. But I've heard, with the culture and of course what the Thorns and Timbers have done at the pro level, it seems like Portland is just very much a place that loves its soccer.
Great vibe. They create a great environment in that space. And I do think you're absolutely right, Andrew. Like when there's a community around the sport of soccer, like that's where you really see it kind of transform to another level. And yeah, Portland has become a soccer city, over, the last decade or two with the Timbers and Thorns. So yeah.
Awesome. Definitely on my list too of getting out there. I was in Portland, Maine this summer, and it was funny. They've had a great start with their Hearts of Pine team, and everybody up there was talking about trying to get some preseason game, a one-off, or some kind of like Portland Cup, and you could have
Portland. Oh, I love that.
Play each other or something, which is a cool idea. So anybody out there listening who wants to organize and put the sponsorship dollars behind that and make it happen, I think there's a great chance, because you have great organic soccer support in both places. And so you're going through, being an athlete yourself now to more of the soccer mom, and very importantly, I always joke soccer taxi, that's a big part of that, always getting everybody all over. And that kind of dovetails and fits in well with what you're doing with Rematch. So tell us a little bit about kind of your role there, and what you guys are trying to do within the soccer community here in the States.
So I was hired by Rematch just over a year ago, and was hired into the role of CEO to basically take a platform that was founded over in France and has had tremendous success over there. They're partnered with every major sports federation. They're the number one sports highlights platform in the country. They've really proven their value in the sports market. Now, we can't say that the French sports market is what the U.S. sports market is. It is very different. And there's many differences, from the structure to, just, the community involvement around, especially youth sports. So when I was hired last August, it was basically, all right, take this proven platform and make it successful in the US. And, we see that there's going to be things that we need to adapt in its place in the market. I believe Rematch is a platform that ultimately is going to support and drive impact to all levels of sport. We even did a little pilot partnership with Major League Rugby this last summer, or spring and summer. But ultimately, Andrew, our passion and our focus right now is to bring Rematch to the bottom of the sports pyramid. We really believe that there is tremendous value in our platform for not only the incredible technology that our app allows parents to capture highlights, capture content, and AI-enabled features that create highlight reels for you, so parents aren't spending, hours, going through content and creating, highlight reels and whatnot. Creates really, really seamless sharing opportunities. But really at its core, where Rematch, really came to life from, our founder was, a mid-level soccer player over in France. And, they weren't at the top level as, pro players, but they wanted to be seen. They wanted to see their own highlights. They wanted to see what, they were doing out on the field. And of course, there's always going to be those tactical cameras, those high-level cameras that are maybe capturing the wide angle. And there's value, of course, to that sort of footage. But he was looking in the stands, his teammates were looking in the stands and saying, there's people with their phones out capturing elements of our game, but how do we get to see that content? And so that's really at the root where Rematch really was founded from, is that creating a platform that where, regardless of what level of sport, what sport specifically you're a part of, everybody has a platform to be seen and celebrated. And so, we really are excited about bringing Rematch to the youth market, because let's drive more visibility around youth sports. And, why or where those values and benefits, impact the market or your specific community or your specific family can vary. It could be because you're trying to, pursue a dream of playing at the next level, right? And so you're trying to be seen, to be scouted and evaluated for perhaps a college scholarship. But, you may also be trying to, as an organization, grow your soccer club in your community. And so you're trying to increase, digital visibility of your community. It could be just simply to drive more engagement within your own community. If, me as a mom of FC Dallas, like if I'm seeing FC Dallas celebrating my son or my son's teammates' highlights, that's going to strengthen the bond that we have to the
Mhm.
organization because, we're being celebrated, we're being seen and valued in that way. So there's a lot of fun little areas that, we are navigating as we enter the market. We're just 9 months in. We launched the app January 2025. So, just over 9 months in, and
Yeah.
it's been a fire drill. I couldn't be more proud, but also like I have to remind myself to like take some moments to step back out of the weeds and like really be proud of the milestones that we've accomplished, in really such a short amount of time.
Yeah, 9 months is like nothing, right? And you being in just hardly a year in the role, you have a background as well as a coach, as a
Mhm.
basketball coach,
Yeah.
and then kind of had moved from there into corporate roles. But I'm always curious, being a coach myself. Many of our listeners are or have been. What do you think are some of the elements of being a coach that transition into a CEO role, the transition in this, and you were able to kind of transfer over and say, hey, it's not basketball, but it's this, and I can take these elements that I've already developed as a competitor, as a coach,
Yeah.
and bring into
Yeah.
this kind of industry.
I'll tell you, Andrew, it was probably, I don't know, maybe around 2018 or so. I'd been at TCU for a few years, and a conversation happened at a networking event, and somebody, pointed out to me, you guys are really running a business at this level, and I was like, oh yeah, sure. And they're like, no, you're running a multi-million-dollar business when you think about from the brand value of, your TCU women's basketball team to the scholarship dollars around it to, the budget that's provided to your program. Like, and so in a really kind of, breeze by conversation in that moment, I really kind of took the last 5 years or so that I was at TCU and really started to kind of open my eyes into what we were doing, the decisions we were making, and how transferable those skills were into the business world. I didn't have an exit strategy at that point that I was ready to get out of the game. But it really helped kind of open my eyes and help me kind of hone in on, what we're doing from, whether it's managing a budget, whether it's creating a unified vision for where we want, our program to get to, or our company to achieve, to, getting the most out of your talent, right? And supporting your employees or your players in cultivating an environment where they're constantly growing and finding success in their space, to recruiting talent, right? Recruiting great players to join your program, finding the best, people to help come in and share in that vision and help, push that needle forward as we're looking to grow and scale the company. So it's, to me, I think coaches, I think we need more coaches in the professional space, whether that's within the sports market or just, any industry. I think we have a great perspective on leadership and development, and ultimately the desire to be successful and to win.
I think that's a big piece, is the competitive nature. You touched on a couple that always come to mind for me, and it's, the interpersonal, social, and emotional skills to be able to assess, but also like connect with people, is at the core of being an effective coach.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, definitely that drive and that push. And I definitely, notice that a little bit sometimes in certain people we talk to, certain guests, or just looking around. And again, there's an element of that yeah, can kind of, certainly in a situation like with Rematch, you guys this is a new market. You're starting out. You need that kind of fire,
Oh
because
yeah.
it requires it, because you're going to have
Yeah.
those challenges and things day to day. I'm curious. So this one thing I think about too, and talk about with some of our guests who made similar changes, is an element of being a coach, especially like you were at Division I level in a top power conference. There's a lot more. That's a much more public success and failure.
Yeah.
How is it then going, like, and then now in this corporate role, it's like, hey, we kind of have a little bit of like, obviously maybe what would be a game on ESPN or whatever it
Yeah.
is a board meeting. Maybe that's the
Sure.
parallel. But
Yep.
I'm curious how that works out too, of kind of pivoting. You're not in like the
Well,
arena visibly, so to
yeah.
speak.
Yeah. And I love that you brought that up. My favorite speech is "Man in the Arena." Like that, I kind of consider that as kind of my personal credence. So I love the example of the arena. But yeah,
Mm.
I think it's. I gotta say, Andrew, me personally, like I love the pressure. Like I don't like when things just feel like comfortable. The quote pressure is a privilege, right? Truly
Yep.
for me,
Yep.
like I feel like I'm at my best when I do have that pressure. Although it may be different, you gave a perfect example presenting, to our board, at our annual meeting, hey, here's year one of success. And, here's the roadmap for what we have ahead of us, to, having my first pitch on, to a national level organization and, to try to present why Rematch is positioned as, a valuable partner for them to consider, is pressure. And
Mhm.
yet I couldn't be more thrilled to be in those situations. And, we've been really fortunate in these first 9 months to really have some opportunities where we've kind of been tested a little bit of, a little bit of fake it till you make it, like, and yet what we're doing is something that I'm so proud of. And, but I think also actually, Andrew, one of the other things that I think is important to talk about when we think about, that element of pressure is not fearing failure, right? Understanding that like that's part of the process. And I think sports, those of us who've been a part of it, you can attest to it. Like, when we, have a tough loss, like, are we just, beating ourselves up over the result? Or are we actually taking the moment to reflect and find, the
Mhm.
value and the opportunity and the lessons that come from it? I've gotten the feedback from, our board and investors on numerous occasions, like, Hanna, you keep on reporting on all the wins and the successes that you guys are having. Where's some of the small failures
Mhm.
that, are helping you and our company grow? So it's I think important to keep that perspective on, we've got to push the needle. We've got to try some things. We've got to test some things, and we're going to fail, but we're going to be better because of those decisions and because of those moments, with the right sort of mindset. And, I believe that's one of my strengths is the ability to kind of see things in kind of a transformational way that we can find good out of whatever we encounter.
Mhm. Thanks for your thoughtful answer on that. In terms of kind of with this strategy, with this growth, how does Rematch itself fitting into the soccer? I know we talked about kind of lower part of the pyramid, but is it more, hey, we'd like to open this up to parents? Is it going by organizations, by federations,
Mhm.
clubs? Who do you see
Yeah.
as kind of ideal partners, and who you're able to serve, but also can help grow the impact here in the States?
So I think, for us, first and foremost, Andrew, when you think about Rematch, like Rematch does not exist if we don't have users of the app, right? And so we call, our users of the app who are capturing highlights rematchers. Rematchers, that's our bloodline. Parents on the sideline, fans on the sideline, volunteers, managers, whoever it might be based off of, the audience to be capturing content. But I think what's really fun for me and where I've kind of gotten to kind of jump between different verticals is our business model. Again, at the foundational level is the users. And so we've got to make sure that we're providing a product and a platform that brings tremendous value to our users. And, I can speak and I can present Rematch on a very, very personal level because in most cases, I am the target audience, right? I am a sports mom, right? So I understand from my experience as a mom, what am I getting? What value am I gaining from Rematch? For capturing my kids' sports journey to, having been a coach and understanding the value of video. And, although we don't try to position ourselves as a video analysis platform, there's other products and companies out there that are maybe more specifically tailored to that. But at the end of the day, I've said this throughout my coaching career, the eyes in the sky don't lie, right? And so whether it's, a tactical angle or it's, a moment that a parent happens to capture on their smartphone through the Rematch app, there's something that we can look at that content, we can look at that video, and we can evaluate. And, I certainly constantly am navigating in my role with my kids of, mom first, but, I'm wired as a coach. I see sports, in a way that I believe brings value, and so like, hey, let's celebrate this highlight, that I captured. This is a great moment. Hey, but let's also look at your body language that you had,
Mm.
after you took this shot, and the way that you dropped your head, and, the missed opportunity to give your teammate a high five or whatever. I think that there's these nuggets that you get that opportunity based off having video content to be able to reflect and review.
On this podcast, we often talk about what makes this game so great, how it hooks us and makes us feel. And we can't forget that a piece of that is how the game looks. That's why we're proud to announce that this episode of the Because Football podcast is sponsored by Static Age Studio, a print shop and design studio that serves some of the biggest names out there. Think the Philadelphia Eagles, Nike, Puma, Stussy. Whether it's jerseys, training kits, fan tees, any merch you might need, Static Age Studio can help you with their high-quality screen printing, graphic design, embroidery, and DTG printing services all across the U.S. and international. Check them out on Instagram at Static Age Studio or head to www.staticagestudio.com to get started. And if you mention the Because Football podcast, you'll get 15% off your first order. Don't wait. Get in touch with Dylan and the team now to continue loving the beautiful game in style. Now, let's get back to the episode. I try to put myself in the shoes of like the kids now. And,
Yeah.
As a coach, I'm seeing like 8-year-olds having their own soccer Instagram and all these things. And it's wrapped up in this larger conversation of the benefits, but also like the talk about pressure, very real pressures of social media for kids growing up now. And obviously it can be something amazing to be able to share something that you did well, but I'm curious, and this is, you can put both your mom and CEO hat on here, like of kind of the flip side of that. I always think of it as a coach too, of like, there's a lot going on too, especially as kids get into the middle school and high school years, there's a lot going on, in group chats and things like that it might not always be. I'm curious how you kind of, I don't know if this is extremely relevant directly, but it's in this larger conversation, right?
Give you a very, very real and relevant example of this. Truly, this just happened for myself and my daughter's little community of teammates just a few nights ago. So my daughter plays on a flag football team. Awesome. And, the league is first down and it falls under the NFL flag, umbrella. Right. And so we just launched football on the Rematch app in September. So we're just starting to kind of build some, content and use case around the sport. So I had captured some great highlights of her and her teammates, 2 weekends ago. And so we had shared it on, our social media channel, just as we do. And, our intent on our social channels is to celebrate, the moments, whether again, it's, a U5 soccer game or, a state championship basketball game, right? It doesn't matter. Everybody, has that opportunity to be seen and celebrated. So we posted some content, and of course, my 12-year-old daughter and her friends are like, how are they performing? How many views, right? Whatever. So all of a sudden, by the middle of this week, their little group chat was talking about how they had just passed 100,000 views of their like handful of highlights that we had shared across our platforms. And then, unfortunately, the reality is they started to dig into the comments that were happening specifically on one of the YouTube post. And, the reality is in the social media, world is there's always going to be those people who are trolling video content, especially content that is getting, high numbers of views. And they throw in their comments that, if for nothing else, are just negative. Right. And so now all of a sudden the girls are starting to see, oh, she's not fast or blah, whatever. It was negativity. And now the group chat started to, go a different direction. And so having to step in and I, inform, of course, the parent group chat. Hey, just so you guys know, this is happening. Again, if anybody, has any issues, reach out. But it was an opportunity for me to talk to my daughter and then ultimately for her to be in a leadership role of talking to her friends and teammates that like, we've got to be mindful and not get stuck in that spiral and the trap that social media can cause for us. And, ultimately, like what you alluded to, whether it's creating pressure or creating doubt or, really putting someone in a space that is, ultimately a not healthy mental space to be. So, we take a lot of responsibility in the content that we put out, and we try to, to the best of our ability, we can't filter content comments, but, we try to encourage the celebration. And again, the reason why we all love sports and the valuable impact that sports gives and the inclusivity that sports offers. But at the end of the day, social media, is always going to have those individuals that, can spin it the other way, unfortunately. So the better that we can be more informed and, going back to what you talked about at the beginning of this question is, yeah, it's all about building your brand. Like, whether we like it or not, that is the transition. And that is where social media has taken us. And there's incredible, powerful things that can come from that and good that can come from it. But it can be overwhelming and it can be a slippery slope. And it really does take some more intentionality and, some education and awareness around how to effectively do it. And, we're not everything. I don't, claim Rematch to be, everything, but I do think that we've positioned ourselves in a place that really does, in a positive way, support, our users' abilities to help build their brand in a positive way around sports highlights.
Yeah, I know as a content creator, somebody who's putting myself out there as an adult, it's tough out there. So thanks for sharing that example. Let's go a little bit. I want to talk about kind of the level, I would say, this level of soccer that Rematch is looking to really impact, being, like you said, the bottom of the pyramid, whether that is, youth travel teams, club teams, or recreational, whatever it is. I have a lot of experience there, but typically a lot of our conversations, at least on the podcast and in general, when we talk about opportunities within sports or within soccer in the U.S., it's like everybody's looking at the plaudits, and rightfully so, of MLS and NWSL and these $100 million club valuations, all signs that that we like to see. But what do you think is kind of the magic in the level that you are trying to impact, more grassroots and kind of accessible type of communities?
Well, I think accessibility is one that, is definitely a hot topic. Youth sports has a financial burden on participants, right? On families to be able to participate. And, numbers, show that we've had some decline in different sports. I think soccer isn't in that position, I think, because of the excitement that's coming, with the World Cup. But I don't know with certainty. But I think for us, being able to position ourselves in that bottom of the pyramid, one, Andrew, it's a massively large community, right? And so, being able to position ourselves as a brand, a well-known brand in such a, high volume market is good business. But ultimately, we believe we've created a platform that is multidimensional in how it can show up and serve that bottom community. If we jump out of that bottom of the tier, the youth space, and we want to start looking at, whether it's us getting into the college space or into the professional space, like that comes more into, fan engagement, right? Capture the best highlights during the game and we'll feature you on the Jumbotron, or, it's focused more on sponsorship revenue earning, right? So, partnering with whatever high level organization, they've got their brand sponsors. We implement that logo onto the content. Now we've got an additional revenue stream associated with digital impressions, right? So there's that higher level, maybe business stuff that I think, I do believe naturally Rematch will find itself into that area. But what I love about entering into the youth space is we can deliver value to the users, to the community, wherever they're looking to gain value, right? So again, is it for the sake of, wanting to be discovered because you're, a kid in a small market who, doesn't have the opportunity to go play on a, large scale travel team, but, you want to be seen, you want to be celebrated, you want to try to build, awareness around what you're doing. Here is a free platform that users can use to increase their visibility, right? Or simply, the example for me, like I use Rematch every single weekend because my parents and my family live on the West Coast. I live in Texas. My family doesn't get to see my kids compete in sports, nearly as much as they'd love to. So for me, I can seamlessly capture, 8 to 10 highlights in a given game, and instantly share that content to my parents or to my sister. And, within seconds of the game being over, my family has already gotten to experience and have a shared experience with my son and, our family of, what our Saturday morning looked like. Right. And so there's tremendous value in being able to create that community within your own family or within your own network of being able to easily see and experience, the great moments that can be captured through the app.
Mm-hmm. And so then you touched on a question I had, because I know you've done a lot of like looking through, there's a lot with certain clubs and things, but if I'm just, John Doe from North Dakota, can I make an account to share my child's, soccer highlights, or kind of how does that look?
So let me give you just a little bit of a kind of high level understanding of Rematch. So there's kind of two elements to the platform. There's the really cutting edge capturing technology. And, I won't go into all the features. We don't have time for that, Andrew. But what I think is the most innovative element to our capturing interface, but truly what solves a problem that most people, including myself, before I was introduced to Rematch, it solves a problem that we didn't even realize we had. So if you're a parent who's capturing moments through your smartphone, the use case is you hit record, you hope something happens, nothing happens, you end the recording, you start another recording, capture, maybe something does happen, maybe it doesn't, whatever, but you go on, and now your photo app is full of a bunch of videos. You don't know which one was the one that actually had a moment, worthy of keeping and maybe celebrating. So our technology in the capturing interface, it's not until after you see a moment to happen. And, for me, I always tell parents the moment doesn't end when the ball hits the back of the net. The moment ends after the kids, celebrate, after they, have that. So I always tell parents, like, follow through the celebration and then capture the moment. And so then what our technology allows users, or the benefit that users get from it, is once you've seen a moment, you capture it after the fact, and the app's going to rewind time. It's going to go back the previous 15 seconds, or if you're on your premium subscription, you can increase it up to 25 seconds. But it's going to go back in time, and it's going to create that highlight for you. So now as the game's going on, you know that you're only actually capturing moments that are meaningful because you're not doing it until after you capture it. So that's just one of the, big value adds. Again, it's not, these 4K enabled phones. Well, 4K takes up a lot of storage on your phone. So, we're going to store that content in the cloud. You can download it, of course, to your device, but you're not having to house all of that content on your app. But the second vertical of Rematch is really its gallery and its social space for being seen and celebrated. And so, we do tell people anything that you're capturing on the Rematch app is going to a public platform. So you can think of it like a bunch of content creators and everything's feeding into YouTube, right? So what you're going to capture, Andrew, I could within seconds be able to go on the Rematch gallery and, through, searching through your, whether it's your username or the team that you're affiliated with or club you're affiliated with, I'd be able to access the content that you've captured. So, we always encounter those questions from users, about the privacy and, not wanting, my content out there to be seen by others. And of course, we always respect that. And, our platform is what it is. There is an element to capturing where you can make it private so that it isn't becoming publicly shared content. But at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is increase the visibility of sports, is increase the opportunity to be seen and celebrated and experience the joys that come from great sports highlights, regardless of the level. So that's where, again, wherever you are, you can access this platform and you can find the benefit. And again, we do it at a place that is free. And I think that is such a valuable thing. And I can't emphasize how proud we are to be positioned as we are with our business, our grand business model, to be able to offer a freemium experience for our users who can experience all the good that comes at that free level. Yes, we have a subscription, at $4.99 a month. You can unlock a few more, features that just increase the quality of the highlight or the user experience. But at the end of the day, being able to offer a platform to our users that doesn't put any pressure on them financially, when there already is so much pressure around the cost and the increasing cost around participating in youth sports.
And talk a little bit from a club level, what some of those partnerships and what the upside looks like. Again, you're talking about visibility, engagement, obviously being able to facilitate the creation process, but then also distributing that, right, and promoting. So what does that look like on the club side?
So, I've absolutely loved getting to bring this business model to Rematch US. In France, everything is kind of housed under the federation model. And so, the most impactful partnerships over in France really are at that highest of level. And it's not to say that we aren't pursuing those as well. But where we stand in the US market is a highly fragmented market, right? And so having an opportunity to go directly to club organizations is kind of twofold in the benefit that comes from it, Andrew. I'm not going to dismiss the fact that for me, in my role and my number one objective of, users on the app, I recognize that through a partnership with an organization, a club organization, they've already established a high level of trust with their community, right? And their community is my target market, right? Mm-hmm. So if I can present value to a soccer club, a Lone Star Soccer Club down in Austin that has over 10,000 kids participating in their soccer organization, if we can present value to Lone Star in the services that we'll provide, and I'll share with what that is in a few seconds, but I'm going to have a much higher conversion rate of them saying to their community, hey, download this app. This is why we're doing this. This is why we're partnering. Here's the value that you're going to get personally, but also the value that our club's going to get, versus me just taking a B2C approach and just trying to, grow our user base.
Absolutely.
But for the benefit of the club organization, it's a few different things, from, again, creating a brand, a branding opportunity. So when we partner with an organization, their club organization logo is embedded into the platform. So now anytime, a parent associated with Lone Star Soccer Club is capturing highlights on the Rematch app, that Lone Star logo is going to be on that content. So now let's say a Lone Star parent, captures an incredible goal and, posts it on their social media, and that thing just goes viral, right? Or we post it on ours, whatever, it doesn't matter. They're getting the benefit of that, those digital impressions with the branding of their logo. So, from a marketing standpoint, the club organizations who understand the value that comes from, digital visibility, it's a big play. But I think what also is really powerful, and where we find most of our clubs, really excited about the services that we provide, is they now have a limitless amount of content that they can source within the organization, right? So think of it, Andrew, as the sense that all these parents on the sideline for Lone Star Soccer Club are now becoming the content creators, right? They're the storytellers of this organization. And what we then have the ability to do is, we go through all the content captured by Lone Star parents over the course of a week. And we, on Monday, turn around and provide Lone Star the best of the best highlights already converted into social media ready format. So, everything on the app is captured in landscape format, but we're going to convert it into the various, vertical formats or square or whatever it might be. And we provide it back to the club. And now they have a week's worth of content to be able to turn around and celebrate and, drive, engagement and visibility on their platforms with UGC. And, we all know the statistics around user generated content. It just outperforms really in every metrics, at least the most important ones, And so it's really helped bring solutions again to clubs that maybe they did identify, or maybe they didn't realize that their content was lacking until we realized, or we presented, hey, look how much better you could have, or how much more you could have to choose from. But then also, from a revenue standpoint, another element that we offer through these services is, if Lone Star Soccer Club comes to us and says, hey, one of our organization sponsors, sees value in also taking advantage of this digital platform, we would like, sponsor X to also be included on our platform. Now we're presenting a solution to a club organization for an additional revenue stream for them, right? Like, you negotiate what the value is of, whatever local car dealership, sponsor deal might be, and we'll put that logo onto our platform, and now you're getting to benefit from an additional revenue stream, with that sponsor visibility. So I think there's a lot of fun things, and ultimately getting to a place of gamification, within a club organization. So I think there's a lot of fun things that we're going to be, doing with our partners, just to help continue to evolve and discover, additional value adds that this partnership can bring to their organization.
So much you just said right there really locks in what I've been noticing. As we're going around the country, or I'm looking at American soccer, like there's a small percentage of youth clubs that are doing their marketing and social media very well. I understand that a lot of that is because of capacity, and a lot of times it's just there's so much going on, within their roles, and then it's like, oh, it's one more thing, and maybe they don't have the funds to be able to have a really dedicated social person. But I feel like that is kind of the next frontier of opportunities for clubs, of exactly like you said, being able to activate brand sponsors and really value and impact that they can bring on a local or national level. Parents are creating the content. Your team is able to kind of clean things up and then package that for the clubs to then post is huge. And I think, going forward, whether it's things like Rematch for us, come from our perspective, that's club having their own podcast, it's club having their own little mini documentary or series. I think there's so many opportunities for that. And again, it speaks to, even at that lower part of the pyramid, the desire for and like the authenticity that parents want to see. Again, when you talk about sharing the story of a team, the marketing helping clubs grow, it's I just love how everything kind of fits together there. So excited to see too what new features and opportunities come up going forward as well, because you guys are just getting started.
It's been fun to navigate, Andrew, in the sense that, again, we're having to do things that are tailored to the U.S. market, right? And all the examples that you just described about where the direction of building your club and the marketing strategy, and we're way ahead of what's happening over in the French market in that space, right? And so we're coming up, we're creating and coming up with those ideas to help push things forward in real time, and that's what's been so beneficial for us, and what we're so proud of the early partnerships that we've had in these 9 years is we're telling these organizations, like, help us evolve. What more can we offer? Where can we bring more value in what you're receiving from us, and where we believe we can go with, serving your organization, or just serving the youth market, sports market in general. Like, I'm not going to sit here and, claim that, who we are today isn't going to be the same in the next year. Like, we want to grow and evolve as this market is doing that. And so, nothing helps you do that more successfully than having great partnerships who, are invested in the vision and helping you kind of navigate and figure out what that path, looks like along the way. So that's the fun that we've been having the last few months, for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Love it. Well, Hannah, this has been great chatting and getting to see more with Rematch. I think one thing I like about the timing of this conversation is you guys have had enough things going where you're getting the hang of some, but there's still so much opportunity and potential. Yeah. And like you said, room for things to evolve and transform. So we'll look forward to keeping track and keeping an eye on that. But let's move in here to our all-time five-a-side team segment. So for you, as a refresher for our audience listening or watching, it's the key here is you have to choose yourself. So you got to pick yourself, which is intentionally uncomfortable. I like to put everybody on the hot seat. And then you get to pick 4 legends. Could be anybody, that we've heard of or haven't, at any stage, any phase of soccer. So yeah, that's your 4. And goalkeeper, some people like to put a goalkeeper in their 5. Some people go without. I'm one of the ones that likes to go without, but recently a lot of people have been choosing goalkeepers, so that's totally your call.
All right. Well, thanks for letting me know. I'm gonna stay true to what I had in mind. This is going to be a very offensive focused squad, and I was a striker, but for the sake of this roster, I think I'll defer and I'll play more on the back line and help us there. But of course, I gotta lead with Messi. Because you can't not include him. He's incredible for obviously everything that he's done, but I love, the decision that he made. He made a business decision in coming to the US. And I think we all in the soccer community owe a lot of gratitude for what his decision and his presence in the MLS and just in the US sports or in the US soccer community has done for us. So I got Messi up top there. And then, of course, I'm going to go with the most beautiful man ever to walk on the pitch, Cristiano Ronaldo, because I have had a crush on that man since I first saw him, and it doesn't hurt that he also happens to be one of the best soccer players of all time. And then I'm going to add Mia Hamm to the list because, I would say as I was a youth soccer player and in the space that, I was growing as a soccer player, she was and still is, the GOAT. And she, inspired a lot of us athletes, not just soccer players, but I can definitely say the amount of time that I've, studied and, researched and learned about her as a competitor and as a professional, and her mental approach to sport, served me a lot in my career. And then I'm going to bring it home just in honor of my Portland Pilots. And although the women's team right now is not in the national space, but thrilled to see that our Portland Pilots men's team is top 5 nationally ranked right now. I'm going to give it to Christine Sinclair, the all-time goal scorer for Canada, men or women. Christine and I we were in college, same years together. So it was pretty fun to be able to watch not only her college career, but obviously everything that she's done since. So that's my squad, Andrew.
That's pretty elite. You were able to combine your sentimental with elite quality, which I would expect nothing less from a competitive coach like yourself, Hannah. So fun team. Christine Sinclair, she's a first timer. We've had Mia before. We've had Cristiano and Messi being chosen, but Christine's a first timer and well deserved. Great to see that. Potentially our first Canadian player ever chosen as well. So last one to kind of to bring everything home here and kind of put a final punctuation, we ask all our guests, could you complete the sentence, because football?
Complete the sentence, because football. Let's see. Because football is sports. For me, because football is sports and what sports does for, in my opinion, the development of who we are as people is so important and so foundational in who I am and who I try to raise my kids to be and influence my community. Because football is sports, and I'm thrilled that I've gotten to be a part of it in the way that I have.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that, Hannah. Appreciate your sharing. And in general, thanks for being here. And we've got your links and description for yourself, but also for Rematch in the show notes. So everybody, please check that out. But thank you so much for being here.
All right. Thank you so much for having me, Andrew. And I look forward to your visit to Dallas here later this year.
Absolutely. Definitely we'll have you on the list and show some of the sites and give some recommendations. Excited for that. And for everybody listening and watching, thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.